Well, I was going to say that even...
Man, it's completely inconsistent with someone who ages and their handwriting deteriorates.
Can you restate the question, the initial question?
It's completely inconsistent with someone whose handwriting deteriorates because of age. Yeah.
If I could just get some clarification on what you're asking if is inconsistent.
Your long explanation. I'm asking you. It is inconsistent with your long explanation when you actually consider that someone's age can make their handwriting deteriorate, right?
Oh yes, I don't deny that. I said that earlier, that the handwriting can change.
Thank you. So how many reports did you do in this case?
2.
What were the dates?
The first report is dated September 13, 2017. And the second report is dated September 25th, 2017.
Okay. Have you been trained to repeatedly use the phrase simulations and tracings when you're unable to reach a conclusion?
I'm not sure if I understand your question, but simulations and tracings, we are trained to recognize those. That's a part of our training program where we're learning how to evaluate and compare handwriting and to determine whether the handwriting has been naturally executed or not.
And all I'm asking is, were you trained to do that?
Yes, I was trained to recognize handwriting simulations or tracings.
The reason I'm asking you is you've referenced over 20-some times in your limited testimony this morning the phrase simulations and tracings, right?
I'm not sure if it was 20 times, but yes, I did speak of those.
And the reason you did that is because the bottom line here is you cannot tell this jury definitively who wrote any of those question checks, can you? Just that.
I'm sorry, I was about to answer.
Please.
I was about to answer. The results are that there are indications for particular checks that the Ms. Soul may not have written particular entries, and then there are some results that I was neither able to identify nor eliminate Ms. Soul. So yes, both of those conclusions are not conclusive opinions.
And in fact, in your report, you say specifically, which you have not today, but you say specifically, the evidence falls short of that necessary to support a conclusive opinion, right?
That's correct.
Is that why you said simulations and tracings over 20-some times, so that that conclusion where you couldn't come up with an opinion was bolstered?
No, sir. I don't believe that's bolstering. I believe that that's giving the results of the examinations.
Because in check 870, which is the known check of Ms. Soul, agreed?
Yes.
That was the single and only check that you were given to compare as a no, right?
A check, yes, but I did receive other normal course of business documents.
You understand my questions, right?
Yes, sir, and I'm answering them the best that I can.
Okay. How many other checks, known other checks, Ms. Soul, were you given for analysis?
That check 870 was the only known check of Ms. Soul.
And what was she doing the day she wrote that check?
I don't know, sir.
What events were occurring around her that caused her to write that check?
I don't know, sir.
What hurrying or what immediacy was required for her to write that check?
I do not know the circumstances around the check.
So there may have been circumstances that caused her to write that particular check the way you've seen it, correct?
I do not know the circumstances surrounding the check.
So there may have been other circumstances that would have affected how that check is written, correct?
Again, that's hypothetical, and I do not know the circumstances around the check.
So if you would have had 100 other checks of this sold that were known, that would have given you a better analysis, right?
Of course, like I stated earlier, more known writing is always helpful to the examination.
Just one check.
I was actually given more than just the one check for comparison.
One check that was known.
One check that was known for Ms. Soul, yes.
Did you ask for other checks that were known?
Specifically, if you refer to my report, I asked for the submission of more normal course of business samples of Ms. Soul.
Did you?
No, I did not.
And that limited your analysis, didn't it?
That was a limitation. Just like I said, more known writing is always helpful.
You put in your own report it was a limitation.
Yes, right? I did.
So if you would have had other checks from Ms. Soul from, say, November, August, some other day, known, you could have compared that to the single check that you had from December 4th, right? And looked at consistency. Correct?
I'm trying to follow your hypothetical.
It's not hypothetical, it's a question. You would have had other known checks in this sold. You could have compared it to the single check that you actually analyzed, right?
I could have evaluated it for internal consistency like I did with the others, yes.
But you're only able to evaluate the handwriting of Miss Soul in a very isolated situation from one known check, right?
Again, yes, I did have the one normal course of business known check of Miss Soul, but I had other normal course of business documents as well as the exemplars that I spoke of earlier for known writing samples to compare.
If you could have definitively identified Frank Bybee as the person who wrote those checks, you would have come in here and said that, wouldn't you?
Yes.
If you could have definitively said to these folks, Marcia Soul didn't write any of those question checks, you would have told us that, wouldn't you?
Yes.
But you're unable to do that, right?
That's right.
Let me have a moment. Nothing further.
Thank you. Your Director.
Yes. Ms. White, are you a scientist?
Yes.
And as a scientist, do you do scientific analysis?
Yes.
Do you speculate about whether a person's handwriting has deteriorated from December until August? Is that part of your job as a scientist?
We do not speculate. We are given the submissions to examine and compare, and this is based on knowledge or information that we have been given from the sheriff's office or other law enforcement agency saying that these writings are purportedly written by this person, since I was not present when they wrote the items, but yes.
So you look at the hard evidence. You don't speculate.
That's right.
You don't say, well, this person
Objection,
you don't say, well, this person is 80 and she was 79 and a half then, do you?
I do not.
No, and you don't speculate about the person who is the purported writer, about whether she, the facts and circumstances of her day, whether she was in a tizzy or whether she was calm or whether she was drinking, or whether she was not drinking. That's not your job, is it, Ms. White?
No, it's not.
Your job is to do a scientific analysis, correct?
That's right.
And you did a scientific analysis in this case, did you not?
I did.
Okay. How many known signatures did you get from Marcia Soule?
There were a total, in the first submission, there was a total of 11 sheets containing known writing samples of Ms. Soule. In the second submission, I received the one normal course of business check with Ms. Soule.
So you didn't just receive one.
That's right.
And when you said normal course of business, you weren't asking for more checks, were you?
No, the normal course of business can include many types of things.
In fact, do you receive many different kinds of writing, whether it's on a check, whether it's on a love letter, whether it's on a birthday card, whether it's on a note to the grocery store, when you are doing your scientific analysis? It does not have to be what the other question document is.
That's correct. And this is why we use the term normal course of business. It's really just writings done in your natural course of your day.
All right. So did you receive a dozen samples of Ms. Soule's writing?
I did.
And did you use those dozen samples to compare with checks 830 through 833?
Yes.
And you did arrive at a conclusive opinion that it looked as though it was either simulated or traced.
Yes, I was able to.
Did you arrive at a conclusive opinion?
Yes.
And what was that conclusive opinion?
I was able to determine that the question entries on all of those question checks were or contain features of simulations or tracings.
Okay. And despite the fact that you use the word simulations or tracings, are those not the best words in your profession to describe exactly what you saw on those checks?
Yes, and that the simulation or tracing, that language is used in our national standards.
Thank you. Nothing further.
And you may step down. Any need for recall?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right, very good. Ma'am, you are discharged. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your testimony. Ladies and gentlemen, we've hit 10:15. This would be a good time for us to take a break. All right, thank you. Let's take our quick 15-minute break here. All right.
But prior to that, in my general detective duties, I also was going to schools and doing digital evidence examinations prior to actually being assigned to that unit.
Okay. Can you describe your education and training to work in the digital forensic lab?
Well, I have an associate's degree, which focused a lot on computer-related things. I've taken programming classes in the college level, taken other computer classes in the college level, database classes as well, which is very important because that's what most digital media is stored in databases. I've also been to advanced classes through the sheriff's office that they sent me to. I'm a member of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, which we do crimes against children that are internet-based, and through that they provide us with a ton of schooling for computer-related classes. I'm also a member of the IASIS, which is a group of computer forensic specialists that we receive training through them and continued training, and then there's a network of peers that we can rely on for certain situations that we need to question or need further education on something that we're currently working on.
All right, Detective, can you tell the members of the jury about approximately how many digital forensic cases you participated in?
Over 100.
Over 100 cases?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you tell the members of the jury your experience as a detective as well?
Yeah, like I said, the the experience that I have isn't just over the year and a half. I've started doing cell phone forensics and took classes and did data interpretation on that about 5 years ago is when I started doing that. So my experience is more than just being in the unit.
Were you also a general assignment detective?
I was.
For how long?
That was 6 years total.
And what types of cases did you participate in as a general assignment detective?
As a general assignment detective, we were tasked with everything from burglaries and look-intos and what you would consider the lower level felonies, all the way up to robberies and child crimes and the homicide, things like that.
Okay. And can you tell the members of the jury how you became involved in this specific case?
In this specific case, I was tasked with doing some digital forensics examinations on emails and email headers.
Okay. And specifically, an email that initially was from Ms. Soul purportedly to Dr. Lerner?
Yes, at face value, that's what it appeared to be, was an email that was from Mrs. Soul to Dr. Lerner.
Okay. Detective Whedon, have you prepared a PowerPoint that would assist the jury in explaining how emails work?
I have.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state, enter in state exhibit, I'm going to say 50A, which is a
50A?
Yes, Judge.
5, thank you.
The actual digital PowerPoint will be 50, but I'll provide for a copy. I provide a copy for demonstrative purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Detective Whedon, let's go through that PowerPoint. You prepared it, correct?
Yes, I did. The clicker, it's right there. Yep, right there.
This is the cover page.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you have Detective Whedon just step down and do it?
Yeah, why don't you step down, Detective?
With the court's permission.
Okay.
Court's permission. Art.
Pull it up. Okay, and we'll go through it with the jury. Pull up the, okay.
This, I can.
Yep,
Just say.
okay. Face the jury.
Okay.
And let's go through with how an email is received by a recipient.
So the way an email is received by a recipient, and how every one of us has always gotten an email patterns like this, you have a line of who it's from. You have yours, where it was to, and you usually have a date and time. You'll have a title or subject line, which is one of the kind one, and then you'll have a body of your email. So everybody gets every day, and that should be pretty familiar. Now, with an email,
Let me just stop you right
Okay.
there on that. Is that the basic information someone receives when they receive an email?
yes.
Go ahead.
All right. So, a couple things you would probably ask yourself is how exactly does that get from point A to point B? It doesn't an email to get from one place to another. Because that information generally people don't care about, the provider or your internet service person, company handling emails, they strip that information out so that you don't see it. It doesn't mean that that information is gone. They just don't show it to you because you don't care what relays it went through to get to your inbox. So, how do we get that information? Well, it's relatively simple.
Okay, let me just stop you right there.
Okay.
So the information that there's generally hidden information on an email that the recipient receives, but they don't know about because it's not visible.
Correct.
Okay.
But it's not common, it's there. And every client or every company that you use for your email, whether it be Google or AOL or Hotmail, everyone's a little bit different to get that information, but everyone still keeps that information with your email. So that information is called an email header. And the email header has quite a bit of additional data that is very helpful for someone like me that's trying to find out if an email truly did come from a person that it was supposed to come from. So this is an email header. This was an example that I used where I created an AOL account specifically for this case to test the different aspects of the email header. And this one, you can see I created an email called ericweeden@aol.com, and I emailed from there to, this is my work email, ericweeden@sarasota. And I sent this over to myself, and I analyzed the different aspects of the email header. So a couple of things that were interesting is the X-originating IP, which is pretty self-explanatory. That's the IP address of where the email originated.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. It's self-explanatory to someone who works in digital forensics, but can you explain what an IP address is?
Sure. An IP address is similar to a mailing address if you're thinking about, if we parallel an email address with a letter from the post office, the IP address is your address. Where are you from, and where should I send something to?
Is that, in layman's terms, the sender's address?
Correct. It's the sender's digital address. Now, there's two types of IP addresses. There are what they call dynamic IP addresses, and then there's static IP addresses.
And we'll get to that, an explanation later on. But,
Okay.
but on an IP address, essentially, we have an originating IP address, which is the sender's digital address.
Correct.
Okay.
And that can be converted to a physical location from the provider of that IP address. So, in this situation, this IP address right here was exactly where I was at. And then this is the other information subject line, which would be your subject line in your email. Then you'll have the content, which is actually below this. But this header, this information is going to be very consistent with the information that you receive on your layperson email. So the from, the to, subject line, date, time, those are all harvested from this email header. Now, this is the first jump in the relay. And as you can see, this IP address here is where the first server received it from. And that also matches the originating IP address.
Okay, you said jumps in the server.
Yes.
Can you explain then how there are specific jumps?
Yes. I believe that's another slide.
Okay.
Okay, so, as I said before, think of the post office, but I like the UPS analogy a little bit better because everybody's received, say, an Amazon package, and because you're really interested in where that's at, you put your tracking number in and you see all the relays of where it's been, all the different stations that it went to before it got to you. So, email header, just like in this, the oldest information is at the bottom of the email header. And as it goes to another relay, it goes to another relay, it goes on top, and then it goes on top, and then it goes on top. So if we looked at this at 9 a.m., we would get this information, but we wouldn't have anything above this. If we looked after 10:24, then the next one would come up, and so forth and so forth. Kind of like an email header. Just like an email header. So, said, it's red newest on top. It started at the bottom in Ruskin, and then it jumped a few relays, and then it's out for delivery, and finally delivered to its location. Just like an email header. So, in this email header, you have your X-ray beginning IP, which we discussed. That's the IP from the sender. Then you have the first leg that's received from. Now this is kind of interesting, and I just want to touch on this real quick. This first one right here, the sender cannot change that information because that information is actually placed on the email once the email gets to the first relay. So if you've ever heard of like spoofing, and somebody spoofs an email, you can spoof a few things on this email. You can't spoof this. The reason you cannot spoof this is because it's out of your control. The email has already left your system and your area and has gone off to another server.
Okay.
So,
can you explain what spoofing is? Because you're talking about spoofing.
spoofing is like everybody's like caller ID spoofing, where it comes in, your caller ID comes in, and it says that it's somebody, you answer the phone, and it's really not them, it's a solicitor. That's spoofing, and it works kind of the same way that this does. So someone can pretend to be someone else, and they can place false information into in this situation, email. But there's a limit to how far you can go when you spoof an email.
Okay, and I'm just going to ask you the question. So you can't spoof the sender's IP address, correct?
You cannot spoof once it's been received.
Use the word.
They have to create an actual connection. So the connection has to speak back and forth to each other for that server to accept that email. So it's not a one-way street. They have to say, hello, who are you? They reply. Now, if you had pretended that you had an IP address that you don't actually have, when you send the hello, how are you, that'll go through. But then they will reply to the IP address that they have, that you sent them originally for the hello. They have to reply, and then you have to acknowledge that you got the receipt of that reply. That's to prevent things like this. So, if you told them you had an IP address that you didn't, that reply would never go back to you, it would go back to somewhere else, and they would say, well, we never said hello to you, so we're not going to communicate. That's how that protection goes in, so that I know that I am speaking to whoever it is that is trying to talk to me.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
So
then here's some other relays. A lot of this is like anti-spam mail. There's servers that only do that job. So different servers do different jobs when you send it out to the world. Because there's hundreds and millions of emails that go throughout the world all the time. So different servers have different jobs, and they do one job and they do it well, and they compartmentalize everything. That is why your email will hop different legs before it gets to the end person. So the person sending it, their company will have a couple of legs. See, this is AOL still, and this is AOL still, and then this becomes Outlook, and this is Outlook, this is Outlook. Outlook is who handles, for this example, my email is handled by Outlook for my work email.
So, Detective, with respect to the tracking information on an email, which you demonstrated on that slide in the PowerPoint, is that essentially the email header?
That is the email header. So I know it's really geeky stuff. I'm trying to make it interesting, but it really is very interesting of how one email gets from one place to another. Now, how long does this take? Because you send an email, you're on the phone with somebody, and hey, I shot you an email, and 30 seconds later, you go, got your email. Well, this particular case, I ran this through to see how long it took. It took 12 seconds for it to jump all of these relays. So it happens extremely quick. Like I said, those servers are really good at the job that they do. They do their job. They attach that information to it. They say that email's good to go. It's not junk, and then they continue on to the next relay until it gets to me.
Okay, let me just stop you right there. Is the complete header information available on both the sender and recipient's version?
No.
Why not?
As we talked about the header information, this is placed on here as it gets to the next relay, right? Because, as I said for this one, you can't spoof this because it was placed on that by the server who received that email. So if I send an email and it gets to someone else, none of this information is going to be on here because it's all placed on the email after it leaves your control. So the only place that this email header information will be is on the email that the person received, not the email that was sent.
Okay. And of all the information in the header, what information is important in determining the sourcing of an email?
Well, again, the X originating IP, that is very important, obviously. And then again, the very first relay, which will likely match the X originating IP. And if those two are matching, then we know we have an authentic email that we know as this information will be accurately recorded.
Okay. If you can return to your seat there, detective. What's that? Not yet, but might as well set it up. Okay. Detective, could an unrelated IP address show up on an email?
Not in those locations.
Okay. So, just for instance, could my IP address show up on an email?
No.
Why not?
Well, unless you were the sender of that
Unless
email.
I'm the sender of an email.
Mhm.
Okay. Why not?
Because the sender of the email has to make that handshake with the first receiving server. And that handshake has to be made and authenticated, which means that it sends it out. That server sends back a reply saying, hey, are you who you are? And you have to send back, yes, I am who I am. And then the communication starts.
So it cannot be changed once it leaves the sender's box or sender's.
Once it leaves the sender's control, you can't change it.
Okay.
Correct.
What's a modem?
A modem is the device that is used for a internet connection to the outside world.
Okay. Can you explain that a little better when you say connects to the outside world? Typically, where someone has devices in their home, they may have several devices. They may have a computer, they may have a tablet, a phone.
So say you have a computer, a tablet, your phone, and your child's computer. There are, whether you know it or not, there's two networks at play. You have your internal network, which has all of your devices inside the house, and those have certain IP addresses that are assigned to those internal networks, and those can never be used for external networks. And then you have that all goes to what you would call a router, which would give you the Wi-Fi access and 4, 5, 10 ports in the back where you plug it in, the Ethernet connection. And then you have a modem, and the modem is the device that allows your internal network to then reach out to the world, which is all the things that you do, send email, check your sports scores, your fantasy football, whatever you do outside of your house is the external network, and all of that traffic, all of that information is flowed through the modem. then to your internal network via your router, and then to your devices.
So it connects your home system to the outside internet.
Yes.
I kind of cut you off when you were discussing IP addresses, and I asked you, do IP addresses ever change?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Can you explain the different types of IP addresses as well?
Okay, there's two types of external IP addresses. There are what you call static and dynamic. Dynamic IP addresses is what most people in homes have, and static IP addresses are generally dedicated to businesses or people who are advanced in internet usage. Static IP addresses are more expensive, and they generally have some sort of server connected to them, because that way we can communicate and you know exactly where I'm at all the time. They stay the same, static ones do. Dynamic IP addresses, they're the ones that can change. Internet providers like to give those to customers, because if you are a customer today and you leave tomorrow, they can give that IP address to someone else. Static's not necessarily that way. So there is no formula to find out how often dynamic IP addresses change. You could have it for 10 minutes. You could have it for 24 hours. You could have it, I've seen people have the same dynamic IP address for well over a year. But it's something that we have to know that it can change, because that's very important when I'm doing an investigation.
Why so? Why is that important when doing an investigation, knowing that IP addresses can change?
Well, for instance, in an email header, if I'm looking for a particular IP address in an email header, and I go to the company that has that IP address and I say, hey, who has that IP address? It could have been assigned to 6 or 7 different people. Now, the thing to keep in mind, it can never be assigned to the same person at the same time.
So you need to have the exact date and time when you're looking who has a specific IP address.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to hand you 2 exhibits. Can you just set up?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you what has been previously marked as State's Exhibit 16C. And I'm going to mark the next exhibit as 16 double C. I'm going to ask if you recognize both 16C and 16 double C. Best I can. On 16C,
I recognize this.
do you recognize?
I do.
Okay. And what about double C?
Yes, I recognize that as well.
Are they fair and accurate documents that you have obtained?
They are.
Your Honor, this time, say what movement evidence was in as States Exhibit 16C, States Exhibit 16C and double C.
I'm sorry, 16C and 16 double C.
Correct.
16C has not been admitted so far. Any objection? You may.
you've seen those.
Let me just go back on the record, Mr. Jackman. 16C and 16CC, based on our conversation at sidebar, are both now admitted.
I'm going to retrieve them from you, effectively. And first, with respect to State's Exhibit 16C, permission to publish it?
Sir.
Detective Whedon, can you tell the members of the jury where State's Exhibit 16C was?
Sure. So 16C was obtained from Dr. Lerner, and I went to Dr. Lerner's office. This portion right here is what I'm talking about from here down. I obtained from Dr. Lerner himself. Him and I went to his computer and obtained it.
Okay. So you actually went to Dr. Lerner's office to get the email?
That is correct.
Okay. Did he have it?
He had it, and the original email, which is this portion from here down, he received. He was not in the office, so he had deleted this email, but not before he forwarded it to his assistant.
Okay, so he had the sent version of the email, but not the received version?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you spoke about header information. Let's show the members of the jury State's Exhibit 16, LC.
Well, hold on one second before we leave this. Remember what I said about header information and where you can get the header information from. You can only get it from received emails, not sent emails. He had deleted his received email. He had his sent email. It'll pose a little bit of an investigative issue, and we'll see that in a minute.
Okay, and
Identify who he.
Dr. Lerner.
But please, he doesn't quite translate. If you talk about Dr. Lerner specifically, talk about Dr. Lerner.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Lerner deleted the received email.
That is correct.
Okay. So then, how did you then obtain the header information?
Okay.
Which is Exhibit 16.
Yes, that took a little bit of investigative work, and if you couldn't retrieve deleted information, I wouldn't have a job. That's primarily what I do. So I did some research and found out who was Dr. Lerner's internet provider as far as his IT professionals. He's having his email saved on a server somewhere. Your email, when you receive your email, if you have ever had it go to your phone and be able to go on the computer and get it at the same time, well, where does your email actually store? Because it doesn't store on both devices. Otherwise, when you delete it on your cell phone, how does it delete at your house? That stuff is stored on a server somewhere, an email server. So I did some research and found out where his email server was. Luckily for me, his email server was in Sarasota County with a company called, and this I'm referring to my report, PCM Networking was his email server storage location.
So that's the email header information for State Exhibit 16C.
Correct.
Titled Killing Myself Tonight.
Titled Killing Myself Tonight to Dr. Lerner from Miss Soul.
It's purported to come from Ms. Soul, right?
Correct. This is the header information that we have, or this is the information from the email itself. So what I had to do is I got with PCM Networking. I said, hey, can you guys go back and see Dr. Werner had deleted this email. I need the header information from it. Can you see if you can recover that deleted header information, or has it been what we call overwritten, which means then it's gone forever. So to do that, I had to provide them with the information of the email so they could do the research and go back and find that.
Before I change that, can you tell the members of the jury when that email was actually sent in East Coast time?
Yes, this email was sent December 28, 2016 at 8:28:25 seconds p.m. and this is Pacific Standard Time. So
why is it in Pacific Standard Time?
Well, there could be a couple of reasons. One, it could be that's where he's at currently when he received the email. That could be one of the relays that saved the timestamp there. But what's important to know is that this is recorded in Pacific Standard Time.
Okay, so what East Coast time would be 11:28, correct?
Here, X originating IP, and you see 47.197.67.65. And again, like I said, just to check everything to make sure we're being complete in our investigation, you look at the first relay. First relay received from 47.197.67.65, which means that this server right here made that handshake with this IP address.
Okay. Are you able to determine, and when you at what IP address is the sender?
The sender's IP, which are both of these, is the 47.197.67.65.
Okay. Are you able to determine a physical location associated with that IP address on the email?
On the email, no. Through subpoena, yes.
Okay. And how did you do that?
So first thing we have to do is we have to...
Excuse me, Detective. Mr. Jackman, I hate to be old school. I'm really having a hard time seeing that red dot up there. Do we have a pointer by any chance?
I can stand up and point that
Well,
out.
that may take away from the picture. I just didn't know if maybe Mr. Jackman, being a little old school himself, might have a pointer.
Actually, what we'll do is just
Like a pointer or something. I'm having a hard time following, and I'm not sure the jurors are having. By the way, if you gentlemen wish to move a little further out to get a better view, please feel free to do that. That would probably help if you want to just stand up and kind of point to the line.
Absolutely.
Because I'm.
Okay, so this is the X originating IP, which we had spoke about in the demonstration. And then, like I said, we have to try and find that on the first received line, which is 47.197.67.65, and that was the server, and this is the server's IP address that had received this and made that handshake.
Okay. And then my next question was, are you able to associate a physical address with that IP address as the sender?
Yes.
And how do you do that?
Well, we take this IP address right here, and we run it through a various set of tools on the internet that are available to everyone. What we're looking for is who owns this set of IP addresses, because IP addresses are assigned to different internet service providers. Those IP addresses are always assigned to them, whether they're dynamic or static. That's decided by the internet service provider. But what is known is that this is within the confines of a set of IP addresses that are controlled by Frontier Communication. So once we find sorry.
Okay, did you scheme up the associated address with that IP address?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state's going to move in Evidence State Exhibit 51.
What is it, Mr. Chairman?
It's the
objection?
No.
No objection having been heard, 51 is admitted and may be published at your discretion, sir.
Detective,
Yes.
what is the IP address associated with the email titled "Killing Myself Tonight," where it was sent from, the origination?
471976765.
Whose address is that?
This is the Frontier Communications service record that we asked who was assigned that IP address, and this is what we got back. And the address is 5748 43rd Court East, Bradenton, Florida, 34203.
And is that the known address of the defendant?
That is.
Is there any doubt that the email titled "Killing Myself Tonight" to Dr. Warner on December 28th, State Exhibit 16C, was sent using a modem at this defendant's address?
No.
Going back to State Exhibit 16C, the fact that it has Ms. Soul's email address coming from her AOL account, does that mean she sent it?
Only if she was at that address when it was sent.
Okay. Can someone use someone else's AOL account and send an email?
Sure. All you would need is the username and password.
So someone would have to sign in as Marcia Soul
Yes.
with their
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
with their username and password, correct?
Correct.
To have it appear that it comes from the soul. Is that fair?
Yes, that's fair.
Okay. So they can fake an email by having their.
Mr. Jackman, don't push my
Okay.
overrule
Okay.
too far, please.
All right.
Is it possible? Is it possible?
Is it possible for someone to fabricate or fake an email that it appears to come from someone?
Yes.
How do they do that? What information would that person need?
A username and password would be one way.
That's it?
That's it.
But they can't fake the sender's IP address, is that fair?
That is fair.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 16B. And I'm going to label it 16 double. B and double. I can use 16B and double. Did you recognize that?
Yes, 16B, I recognize.
And 16 double.
Yes, sir.
What is 16 double?
16 double D is the email header along with the email content for 16B.
And did you obtain, or the sheriff's office obtain, both 16B and 16 double?
Yes.
Throughout this time, the state went out on 16B and 16 double. Okay.
No objection having been heard, 16B and double B are admitted and may be published at your discretion.
16B is an email. Again, this information, it appears that this email is from Ms. Soul. The date is December 28, 2016, 11:49:53 Eastern Standard Time, which is where we're at. It is to dombro@comcast.net, which is Marianne Dombro, and the subject is killing myself tonight.
Okay. Now, can you source where that email came from?
Not from this email here.
Okay, what information, again, do you need to source where that email originated from?
The email header information.
Okay. Showing you 16 double B. Can you source where this email killing myself tonight originated?
Okay. Again, let's verify that it is the correct email.
Well, why don't you stand up? and point
Oh,
to
I'm
it?
sorry. So let's verify that it is the correct email, because that's the most important thing. So the date is December 28, 2016. 23 is 11:49:53. This means Eastern Standard Time. It's from Ms. Soul. It's to Ms. Dombro. The subject is killing myself tonight. Okay, we have the right email. I also know this is the right email because I physically went to Ms. Dombro's house and logged into her account and obtained this. So
That's how you got the header. You actually retrieved it physically from her computer.
Correct. So again, X originating IP, let's look at that. It's 47.197.67.65. And then we go to the bottom of the relays. And we check the first relay, which this mail server had made the handshake with 47.197.67.65. So that is the IP address that this email was sent from.
Okay. Now, going back, are you able to determine the physical location where that email was sent from?
Yes,
Okay. And again, how do you do that?
through the subpoena results of the business records from Frontier.
Okay. And is it the same IP address that is the defendant's residence?
Again, 47.197.67.65. 5748 43rd Court, East Bradenton, Florida.
Is there any doubt that the email to Marianne Dombro states as a 16B titled "Killing Myself Tonight" was sent from the defendant's modem at his residence?
No,
No doubt.
no doubt. Could you please put the other exhibit back? I want to just say one thing that's really important that we also have to determine. I explained to you guys about the dates and the dynamic IP addresses. So this, when we asked for the IP address and the subscriber, this is the date range and time range to which this residence and the modem at this residence was assigned this IP address. We have to make sure that the emails that were sent are between these two dates. Otherwise, that dynamic IP address could have been assigned to someone else. But this business record shows that this IP address was assigned to this address between these dates.
So you talked about faking an email and saying that all you need is a username and password to have it appear to come from someone else.
That's one of the ways.
Okay.
Yes.
But the recipient unless they go to the header information and do what you did, tracking an IP address, would have no idea that it came from someone else.
Correct.
I'm going to show you, well, first let me show count. I'm going to show you two documents, 16A and 16AA. And ask if you recognize them.
I do.
What are 16A and 16AA?
16A is an email that was received by Philomena Pereira, and 16AA is the email header information for that email.
Were both those documents obtained by the sheriff's office?
Yes,
And did you do a forensic analysis on those documents?
I did.
Around this time, you say the rule of evidence states that it's 16A and 16AA. No objection.
Objection having been heard, 16A and 16AA are admitted and may be published in the discretion.
So I'm going to publish the jury 16A. And you said you had obtained that. Can you give the subject for 16A?
The subject?
Yep.
Give it to Frank if you don't know.
Okay. And who was the receiver of that email?
It was Philomena0120@gmail.com, which I know to be Philomena Pereira.
Okay. When was that email sent?
That email was sent Thursday, December 22nd, 2016 at 1:43 a.m.
Okay, so this is actually days earlier from the other emails.
That is correct.
Detective, again, are you able to source or the origination point of that email?
Of this one, no.
What information would you need?
The email header.
Okay, and now I'm going to show you 16AA. And did that assist you in sourcing? I can move it up and you can point to it.
Okay.
Exactly. To source the email to Philomena Pereira on the 22nd of December at 1:30 a.m.
Yes.
Were you able to source the origination point of that email?
Utilizing this header address.
Okay, can you show the members of the jury again how you did that?
Okay. This information here is provided by her email company, which is Google. So we can scroll down because this, I'm not interested in how they read this. I want to read this myself. So we have, let's go to,
And then we have the other page.
yes, let's go to page 2. Just go to the top of page 2 here. Okay, good. So, date time, December 22nd, 2016, 1:30:08. And this is the Eastern Standard Time. Miss Sol. To Philomena. That's Philomena Pereira. And subject, give to Frank but do not read it. Okay, so again, it's that email. And furthermore, there's the content of the email which matches as well. X originating IP, 47-197-6765. We look up to the first relay, and this email server made the handshake and communication with 47-197-6765. 197-6765. So,
Again, the same modem associated with the defendant's residence.
correct.
Okay. Is there any doubt that the email, approximately 1 page in length, said, "Give to Frank, but do not open"? Was sent from this defendant's modem at his residence?
No doubt it was sent from the modem at the defendant's residence.
I don't have any other questions for you, Detective, Defense Counsel. I'm just going to retrieve some of these. What's that? What's that?
Good morning.
If I have an email account on AOL and I maintain that account, you're aware that in this particular case, when you went to search Ms. Soul's email, she had approximately 5,900 and some emails, right?
No, I was provided the 3 emails to specifically investigate those 3 emails.
So you have no clue how many emails Ms. Soul had in her computer or in her AOL account at the time you're doing all of your analysis.
I was not.
Did you bother to check whether any of the emails that you've talked about actually were written by Ms. Soul?
I did.
Okay? And if you didn't go in and look at her emails in her computer, how could you do that?
Well, as I said before, I was tasked to source, specifically, that was my task, was to source those 3 emails. Now, knowing how email header information works, the email in and out box on a computer is irrelevant because that email header information is never on the email that was sent. Furthermore, if somebody logs into an account and sends email to someone else utilizing the account, then that email would be in the sent box unless someone went in and specifically removed and deleted that email from the sent box. So, in my opinion, there was no reason for me to go into her account. I needed to get the email and the header information from the accounts that it was sent to.
All right. If you had gone into her emails, you could have looked at her sent account, right?
Yes.
But you didn't do that.
I did not.
You didn't look at her draft account, correct?
No.
Why don't you tell these folks what a draft is?
A draft is if you go in and you start typing an email and then you don't send it. Say you either click out of it, out of the box if you're in the web interface, or you do it on your phone and you don't send it and you hit the home button and go back to playing Candy Crush or whatever. That email is then put into a draft box so that you can bring it back up and finish the email at a later time.
And when it gets put into a draft box, is there a timestamp attributed to it?
There would be.
Now, if I go back in later on, I pull that email out of the draft box and I send it, does the timestamp change?
The timestamp that it would be in the email header would be the timestamp that that email was actually sent.
Not written, but sent.
Sent.
Okay. You have no information on who wrote these emails, do you? You only can tell us, according to you, where they came from via the IP address, right?
That is absolutely correct and very important.
Right. Very important, you can't tell me who wrote it.
I can tell you where they came from, yes.
You cannot tell me who wrote
I cannot tell you who wrote them.
it. Did anyone do an analysis of the emails that were in Ms. Soul's AOL account?
Yes.
Who?
Detective Jim Clay, my partner.
You were not part of that process, is that fair?
That is fair, I was not.
I can have a moment.
You may.
The emails that you were asked to review, I believe December 22nd, December 28th, is that right?
That is correct.
Were you ever asked to go back and look at an email sent, say, October 21st of 16,
I was not.
from Ms. Soul to Dr. Lerner?
I was not.
You know why you were not asked to do that?
I haven't a clue.
Who instructed you or asked you to perform the work that you did in this case?
Sergeant Caskey.
Nothing much, thank you.
Sure.
Just briefly, technically, what was your assigned task on this case?
My assigned task was to look at these 3 specific emails and obtain a source of where that email was sent.
Was a colleague of yours assigned to other digital forensic work in this case?
Yes.
And who was that other detective who did other digital forensic work on other items of interest?
Detective Jim Clay.
All right, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Subject to recall?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Detective, you are subject to recall. What I would appreciate is if you wouldn't speak about your testimony with any of the witnesses or potential witnesses in this case.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, very good. Thank you. State your next witness.
State calls Dr. Fred Lerner.
Dr. Lerner.
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, Dr. Lerner.
Good morning.
Will you please tell us your full name and spell your last name?
Brad Stephen Lerner, L-E-R-N-E-R.
Do you practice medicine here in the state of Florida?
Yes, I do.
Here in Sarasota?
Yes.
What is the nature of your practice?
I have an internal medicine practice. The name of the practice is Lerner Cohen Concierge Healthcare.
All right, thank you. And what is concierge healthcare? Can you describe that for the members of the jury?
It's a small practice where we have a limited number of patients, where we provide probably a lot more hands-on care than a traditional practice. It's not an insurance-based practice, but it's primary care.
All right. Is Marcia Soul a patient in your practice?
Yes.
Are you her primary caregiver?
Yes, I am.
How long has she been your patient, Dr. Lerner?
She's been my patient, I believe, 22 years.
Can you tell us a little bit about your educational background, please?
Yes, I attended Johns Hopkins University, graduated in 1975 with a bachelor's, went to University of Florida Medical School, graduated in 1979, and did my internal medicine training for 3 years at University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill.
And when did you begin your practice here in Sarasota?
I started in Sarasota in 1982.
Now, regarding Miss Soul, can you tell us what you have treated her, what reasons you have treated her over the 22 years in which she's been your patient?
I've treated Ms. Soul for many issues, including arthritis, including helping her through surgeries of her knees, her hips, cardiac problems, pulmonary problems, and mental health issues as well.
All right. Most recently, and let me confine that to the last 2 years, can you tell us about her health problems just in this last period of, say, 2015 through 2017?
Yes, she has had significant decline in her overall health due to cardiac, pulmonary problems, as well as mental health issues, weight loss.
Right. Has there been any decline that you noticed in her cognitive abilities?
There have been times where I have wondered about whether she is suffering from cognitive impairment, whether she was confused. It's been not easy to know for sure.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that she suffered from depression.
Yes,
Okay. That depression, has that become increasingly worse over the last 2 years or so?
yes, it has.
And in your practice, are you also associated with a psychiatrist?
I work with psychiatrists, but they're not part of our practice.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. Then did you link Ms. Soul with a psychiatrist that you're associated with?
Yes, at one point I referred her to a Dr. Rebecca Cohen, who is a psychiatrist that has treated her.
To your knowledge, is Ms. Soul seeing a Dr. Cohen at this time?
I do not believe so.
All right. In addition to Dr. Rebecca Cohen, has Ms. Soul seen other mental health providers?
Yes.
Okay. Has Ms. Soul ever threatened to commit suicide, to your knowledge?
Yes, she has.
Okay. When was the first time that she conveyed to you a threat that you took seriously as far as her threats about taking her own life?
October 21st, 2016.
And how did she make that communication to you?
By telephone.
Okay. She never sent you an email on October 21st telling you that she was going to commit suicide?
To my knowledge, not on that date.
No such email exists to your knowledge?
From that date?
We're overruled.
Not on that date.
All right, thank you. Now, do you have an independent recollection of the conversation on October of 2016?
Yes, I do.
Can you please tell the members of the jury how that conversation went with Ms. Soul?
Yes, Marcia and I had a conversation where she called and told me that she was very seriously considering committing suicide. She specifically had planned to go in the garage, turn on her car, and die of carbon monoxide poisoning. At that time, the only thing that she said that was stopping her from doing that was her dog.
All right. Did she use foul language in that telephone conversation with you?
Not to my knowledge.
All right. Did she typically, let me ask you this, I'm just going to digress for a minute. Did she ever communicate with you by email?
Yes.
Did she typically use foul language when she was communicating with you by email?
To my knowledge, that was not typical in her communication.
All right. Did she ever use foul language when she was just sitting down in your office talking to you?
As she might occasionally.
Okay. So let's talk about this October 21st suicide threat. Once you heard that from Ms. Soul, what actions did you take, Doctor?
Okay, on October 21st, I kept her engaged on the phone with one of my nurses while I picked up another phone line, called the police, and told them I was concerned that she would be suicidal, and the police sent someone to her home.
All right. Were you still on the telephone with her, or was your office still on the telephone with her after the police arrived to?
I think after they arrived, we terminated the conversation. There was no need to continue that at that time.
All right, thank you. And what was the result of the fact that these law enforcement officers went to her home after they had been sent there by you?
To my understanding, they suggested to Mrs. Soul that she should be admitted to the hospital under Baker Act for treatment of her depression and suicidal thoughts. She was very reluctant to leave her home, primarily because she had a dog. My wife, who is a nurse and manages our practice, actually went to the home, met the people there, and agreed that we would take the dog during the time that she was hospitalized. So she took the dog to our home, and then Marcia went to the hospital.
All right. Do you know who the law enforcement officers were that were at her house?
As I understand it, it was Officer Bybee and another officer who I don't know.
Okay. Is it typical for you and your wife to board pets of your patients?
No, but that's concierge medicine.
Thank you. Did there come a time after October 21st when you had a personal visit with Miss Soul?
Yes.
Okay. And was that a patient-doctor visit?
Yes.
Okay. Can you please tell us just briefly what that visit was, where it took place, and what it comprised?
I saw her on October 27th, 2016 in my office. This was after she had been discharged from the psychiatric facility. We talked about getting her to Dr. Cohen at that time for psychiatric care. She declined, but she was going to see a psychotherapist at that point. In my notes, I indicated that I did not think she was suicidal at that point, but I still thought she was depressed and almost despondent.
All right. And you mentioned the despondency. Did you see that as being exacerbated over the last few years that you had been treating her?
Yes.
And although she was depressed and despondent, did you ever, in your personal visits with her or your personal conversations, ever conclude, based upon your medical background, that she was suffering from delusions or hallucinations?
It was something that I was concerned about and considered based upon comments that she made that at the time did not seem believable.
All right. Did you learn later that the comments she was making were indeed the truth?
From what I understand, it appears that what she said was validated.
Thank you. All right. Now, did you have any other routine follow-up visits with Ms. Soul after October 27th?
Yes, I did.
When was the next visit, doctor?
The next visit was November 14th.
Tell us about that visit as well.
That was a visit in the office. She had numerous medical complaints. She was weak. She was crying. However, I made a comment that she felt actually happy because she had received 2 invitations for Thanksgiving. She had been seeing a therapist by the name of Barbara Laurie, who she seemed to be getting along with well. So I thought she was doing reasonably well at that point.
All right. Now you say that you noticed that she was weak. Could you elaborate on that a little bit for us, doctor?
Basically, Marcia has gone over the past few years from an independent woman who was able to ambulate independently to needing a walker at best, sometimes a wheelchair. She's lost weight. She's had a series of cardiac and pulmonary problems that have debilitated her, and she just is not the same strong person that she was a few years ago.
Did there come a time on December 28th when you received an email from Ms. Soul?
I received an email on December 28th that I thought was from her.
All right, so purportedly from Ms. Soul.
Yes.
All right. Where were you on December 28th, Dr. Lerman?
I was on a vacation. I was on a cruise ship somewhere between New Zealand and Australia.
Okay, and is that in the Pacific?
That was somewhere in the Pacific. I'm not sure exactly where we were on that day, but pretty much so.
Okay, thank you. Now, when you received that email that you believed came from Marcia Soul, what's the very first thing that you did?
I called my office, advised them that I got this email threatening to kill herself, and asked that one of my associates in the practice follow up on that and see about having her Baker acted again, because I believed on the basis of that email that she was suicidal.
Doctor, I'm showing you what's been admitted into evidence. That State's Exhibit 16C is in cat. Could you please briefly take a look at that? Do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it, sir?
This is an email that includes the email that I received from Marcia Soul and my response to my nurse asking her to follow up with my associate with that.
But this email helped to explain to the members of the jury your subsequent actions when you received this email.
Yes.
If you need to use a certain thing. So, point to the message that you received while you were on that cruise ship in the Pacific.
This is it right here.
Okay. And for the record, I'd like you to read that.
I am going to kill myself tonight, and it will be your fault. I'm tired of you and your pretty little bitchy slut wife. Thanks for all your help.
Having known Marcia for 22 years, is this language typical of her?
I was surprised by this for a few reasons. I thought she actually got along with my wife, and I would not have expected her to speak about her in that way. But her language could be somewhat abrasive and abusive at times.
Okay, so she used salt. Did she use salty language on occasion?
Yes,
How did she get along with her wife?
I thought they got along well.
Okay. When you say you thought they got along well, in your experience, when you saw Miss Soul and her wife together, was it always pleasant?
Yes,
Did she ever, before you read this email, insult your wife in such profane terms?
no.
Can you also tell us, as part of this, what you did when you received this message? What steps did you take to ensure that Ms. Soul was secured and safe? She was threatened to kill herself.
This is my first response. I sent the email to Julie Higgins, who was my office nurse, asking her to please follow up on this and to please give it to Dr. Coco, who is my associate, to see about Baker Act, and I followed that up with a phone call as well.
And why did you say, see if she can be Baker acted again for a long time?
Because it was my belief that if this was real, that it indicated she needed much more help than she got last time she was Baker acted.
And to your knowledge, how long was she Baker acted after Dr. Coco set this several wheels in motion?
I think it was approximately 2 weeks.
Were you eventually contacted by the Sarasota Sheriff's Office after you came home in an effort to analyze your computers?
Yes,
at your office? Did they appear with a subpoena and access your computer?
yes, they did.
Where did that analysis of your computer take place, doctor?
To my remembrance, it took place in my consultative office.
Okay. Do you remember the detective's name that came to your office and did the computer work?
I do not.
Male or female?
It was a male, I believe.
Thank you. Can you tell members of this jury the date when Marcia Sewell finally came home from the facility where Dr. Coco Baker acted her on December 29th of 2016?
I do not have that date available.
Right. Did you have a follow-up office visit with Marcia Sewell after she came home from that facility?
Not for quite some time.
Okay. When was the last, I'm sorry, did you see her in January of 2017?
I do not believe so.
All right. Can you tell us the date, the first time that you saw her in your office after she came home from that Punta Gorda Behavioral Center?
Actually, I do. Let me see. I think. Let me just check my records.
Take your time.
Okay. Trying to separate my phone conversations from seeing her. Okay, I did see her on January 20th, 2017.
All right. And how did she appear?
She, at that point, she had been hospitalized at the Riverside, which I believe is where she went and there were concerns about suicidal ideations and threats. There was a concern about someone entering her home, physically abusing her and stealing from her. Initially, it was felt that this might be delusional, but apparently at that point, because of what I had subsequently learned, there seemed to be some truth and validity to that. It was being investigated by the police at this time. At that time, she was now home with caregivers caring for her 4 hours a day. She was able to walk short distances with a walker. She was depressed, anxious, and feels as though she's just beginning to recover from a very traumatic episode in her life.
At that time, on January 20th, when you saw her, did she express any suicidal thoughts?
Not to my remembrance.
Thank you, doctor. I have nothing further.
Examination.
Judge, I represent the court. There's medical records from the Sarasota Memorial Hospital that stipulated by both parties as evidence in this case. Starting with Exhibit C, Madam Clerk, Exhibit C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, X, Y. I may use some portion of that one, just so for edification of the court.
The representation is that they will be admitted by stipulation.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. You use your discretion, sir.
Doctor, I represent that there's certain medical documents I'm going to show you, records that have stipulated are now evidence in this case that will go in front of the jury. Okay?
Okay.
I just want to come back real quickly, and it's good to see you again. I know we did meet in the deposition, so it's good to see you again, Doctor.
Thank you.
When you were on the cruise ship out in the Pacific between New Zealand and Australia, you did return at some point. Am I right about that?
Yep.
As good of a trip as that would have been.
I'm here.
And what was the time frame do you think that you returned to Sarasota, Florida?
Probably returned around the 5th or 6th of January.
Okay. And at that point, you would have had the opportunity to go see Miss Soul?
I don't recall. I did not see her at that time.
You didn't run over to see her in Punta Gorda?
Correct.
You did not?
I did not.
Okay. So at that point, she would have been in the care, custody, and control of other psychiatrists or other doctors to evaluate her on their own volition.
That is correct.
Okay. And then those doctors could determine whether in fact she was delusional or paranoid, am I right?
Correct.
Okay. And they would decide, because you were not there, whether they should keep her or not.
That is correct.
Okay. So, regardless of the email and the noble duty you did to reach out to law enforcement, you would agree with me that it was clearly the obligation of those other doctors and nurses to decide that.
That is correct.
Okay. No question, if they tell she was there under false pretenses, that they could cut her loose.
It was their job to evaluate and treat as they felt appropriate.
Okay. And so therefore, the first time that you would see her would be the 20th of January?
Yes.
Okay. And you know that she was in the hospital, Sarasota Memorial Hospital, from approximately January 12th to the 18th. Do you know that? Give me your notes.
I believe she was not in the hospital to my knowledge. She might have been in the psych facility, but she was not in the hospital.
Okay. Have you reviewed any of the records?
Yes.
In the Sarasota Memorial Hospital?
From the emergency room, yes.
She was in the facility at some point from the 12th of January to approximately the 18th?
That might have been the psychiatric facility, not the hospital facility.
And that's, just so for the jury's information, there is a facility within Sarasota Memorial Hospital to teach people with psychosis and things of that nature.
That's right. It's a separate facility by the name of Bayside. It is part of the Sarasota Memorial Hospital umbrella, but it is a completely separate facility that is pretty much run by the psychiatric department.
And so when someone comes into the emergency room for treatment, at some point when an evaluation is done, whether they need to be transferred to that division?
Correct. Usually it'd be the emergency room physician who would make that decision.
Right. And a doctor in the emergency room would have made a decision to transfer to that unit to keep.
Yes.
And that would have been based on the physician's evaluation of her state of mind at the time they were evaluating her.
Correct.
And you have no reason to question the decisions of other doctors at the hospital and nurses to do that.
I trust their judgment. If I disagree, I'll certainly speak my part.
Right. And Ms. Soul would represent to them that, and it's in the records, I'll be very clear to you, that she was there because someone attacked her. Am I right about that?
That is correct.
Okay. And the physicians would then have the obligation to evaluate her in terms of physical manifestations, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And you had that opportunity on January 20th.
That is correct.
Okay. And when you did meet with her on the 20th, did you do an exam of her body?
I did not do a complete physical examination. I examined her lungs, listened to her heart, noted that she was tearful and that she has lost weight.
So there was no actual physical exam where she removed her clothes and you could inspect her in any way?
Not comprehensively, that is correct.
And you had not reviewed any x-rays that determined whether she had any fractures from this alleged incident on January 11th/12th?
I reviewed the notes from the emergency room and I don't believe they showed any fractures. I'm not even sure what x-rays were taken, but to my remembrance, there were no fractures demonstrated.
Okay. Did you ever have a chance to meet with the detective in this case?
I spoke, I know, with a detective, Gaeta, G-A-E-T-A.
Right. Detective Gaeta?
Yes, I may have met with her once, but I know I've spoken with her.
And where was that? Was that at your office? Where was that at?
It would have been at my office.
Okay. And did you meet with the state prosecutors at any point?
I believe I don't know if I met or just had a telephone conversation.
Okay.
I met with the state prosecutor recently relative to the deposition that was given
On the
before the
scheduling
trial.
issues of the deposition?
Excuse me?
On the scheduling issues of the deposition?
Of the scheduling, yes.
All right. Now, back in October of 16, You had this discussion with Ms. Soul, and it was very clear to you that her motive, that her plan to commit suicide involved her going into her vehicle and essentially trying to be, her demise would be through carbon monoxide. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Okay, and that became concerning to you.
Yes.
And prior to that time frame, she had never used the suicide word with you before?
I believe she probably had, but never to the point that I took her seriously.
Okay, on that occasion you did, though.
On that occasion, it sounded to me much more realistic than it ever had been before.
Right. And let me just go back a little bit to the email that we showed to you regarding the time frame in December when you were on the cruise. When the police go to the house, the police also can make a decision whether they're going to Baker Act someone.
Correct.
And they have the legal authority to do that.
Yes.
And so the deputies have to assess her at the location to determine whether or not they believe she should be Baker Act.
Yes.
And they did that in this case.
Yes.
And they made that decision. They decided to Baker Act, and then they had authority to do that, right?
Yes.
And you would not question their decision to do that.
Nope.
You said that you recommended that she Marcia go to Dr. Cohen for a psychiatry visit. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Your training is not in psychiatry or psychology.
That is correct.
Okay. And do you know whether she followed up with that visit?
I know she did see her for a few visits, probably 2 or more, but I don't believe she has an ongoing relationship with her at this time.
Okay. And do you know what the diagnosis was from the doctor?
No, we talked, and it was unclear.
Objection, hearsay.
I just don't know whether you know it.
Objection, hearsay.
If he knows what the diagnosis was. You don't have to
That's
mention
what
what
you
it was.
Okay, I do not know.
Have you ever seen any records indicating that she's been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder?
No.
Okay. And you know what that condition is?
I have a general idea, but as a non-psychiatrist, it's something beyond my scope to diagnose.
Right. Did you prescribe steroids?
Yes,
Okay. And what was the purpose of that?
to treat her pulmonary condition.
Okay. Did you recall having a discussion with do you know Dr. Dine, D-I-N-H?
I have not met Dr. Dine, but I have spoken with him, I believe, on one occasion while Marcia was in the hospital.
Okay. And that would have been on or about January 16th?
Yes,
Okay. And you were back from the cruise at that point?
yes.
Okay. And you did not go over to the hospital to see her then?
No, again, she was in the psychiatric department, and pretty much that is run by the psychiatrist, so I typically do not go see patients there unless they're having acute medical problems.
Right. In that discussion with Dr. Dine, you talked about the fact that they have agreed to have a neuropsych testing done to stop the patient's steroid use to see if there's any change in the patient's mental status.
That is correct.
Okay. And that would be because the collateral effect, or the side effect of steroids can be psychological issues.
That is correct. There is a small percentage of patients given steroids that can have psychiatric reactions to them, and we were debating whether or not what was going on with Marcia was a reaction to the steroid treatment or unrelated.
Right, and the side effect could involve some form of psychosis.
Yes.
And that could include irrational or delusional behavior.
Yes.
And it could include paranoia.
Yes.
And there was some discussion, without boring the jury with the records, and they are going to have the records to review themselves, that says that in these records about delusional or paranoia. Is that a yes?
Well, I haven't seen the records.
Okay, you've not reviewed the records. Can I approach
No.
one?
Your Honor, I may object.
For
because
what
the
purpose?
records
They are in evidence. He said he has not reviewed them. We're not going to be reviewing the records today.
Let me ask you this, Doctor. In your meetings with Marcia Soul in October of 16, did she ever represent to you that she, we'll start there. Did she in any way say to you what the reasons were why she would kill herself?
Not specifically why, other than the fact that she was unhappy, lonely, miserable, and other than her dog, did not really feel that she had any reason to keep living.
Did she say that, we'll start there, from the 20 years plus that you treating her, would you say at times she comes across as, I think the state prosecutor used the word, I don't want to misquote her, salty language or abrasive?
Yes.
All right, would you say that she would at times be erratic?
Yes.
Irrational?
Yes.
Okay. And then she would have, do you know if she's, have you ever talked to any of her friends, for instance, Mary Ann Domber?
Objection.
It's a simple question of have you ever spoken? So you may ask the question without going into the content of those conversations.
Have you ever talked to someone named Mary Ann Domber?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you know her? Who is she?
My remembrance is that she is a friend, possibly a neighbor, I'm not sure, of Mrs. Saul.
Okay. And you talked about Miss Saul.
Yes.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that she's had some altercations or arguments with neighbors?
State.
Okay. In your dealings with her,
With who? Miss Soul?
Miss Soul. Appreciate that. Appreciate that, Your Honor. When you're dealing with Miss Soul, has she expressed to you her frustration with relationships?
Objection. Not
Relationships. I'm asking an open-ended question. We're talking about your dealings directly with Miss Soul, not with other people. And then my question to you is your dealings as it relates to her relationships with people. Okay? And that's potentially a psychological issue. How would you describe that? Does she get along with people, not get along with people?
I would say over the course of
I'm going to object to competence.
Doctor, I'm just going to give you, because we're in a tricky area here between what's doctor-patient related, what might not be. You can testify as to observations you have made related to her relationships. You can testify as to your understanding and communications with her as it goes to a diagnosis of her, perhaps her medical condition or whatever, psychological, mental health condition. But you can't rely on what other people might have told you about relationships and what she might have told you about relationships with other people or what other people might have done, unless it goes to your diagnostic tools, if you will. Does that kind of lay it out for you?
Yes, thank you,
Okay,
Your Honor.
thank you.
I guess the simplest way to answer that is over the course of time, I have seen her become more ornery, and her relationships with people have gotten more challenging, shall we say.
Let me ask you about medication. How many medications, how much medicines do you know?
At this time, she's on approximately 7 different medications.
Can I approach you?
You may.
Please show his calendar. Is it gold? Down to the bottom, that connects to the sun. You see the bottom?
Yes, I do.
All right. Can you tell us what, just kind of read off what those medications are, and I can ask you a few questions about that.
Would you be good enough to show me what you're showing?
It's exhibit
before
O.
you- You don't object to this? This was not generated by Dr. Lerner?
It may be evidence, but it's also was used originally to help refresh his memory. I've heard him say that she's under 7 different medications. If that indicates differently, he may want to correct his earlier statement without getting into the specifics of what's on the page. Right?
Yes.
Would it be accurate she's on at least 10 medications?
Well, this was as of January 15, 2017. These medications are not what she is currently on necessarily.
Okay.
There were 10 listed at this time, however.
Can you tell me what they are and what the purpose would be? I appreciate that.
The first one is an antidepressant, venlafaxine. Second one is omeprazole, it's for heartburn. Third one is metoprolol, which is for cardiac problems. The next one is levothyroxine, which is thyroid replacement. The next one is fluticasone, which is a nasal steroid spray. Next is digoxin, which is cardiac medication. Next is Eliquis, which is a blood thinner. The next is amiodarone, which is a cardiac medication. And the last is Abilify, which is an antidepressant. And even though it's listing 10, they skipped number 2, so there's actually only 9 on this list.
I appreciate it. And all of those medications potentially also have side effects.
Yes.
And she was on at least 2 medicines involving mental health issues?
Yes.
1 minute.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I broke the golden rule, Richard. Yes.
Just one more here, if I can, Doctor. Do you have any knowledge of any facilities, mental health facilities and medical facilities that Ms. Soul's not welcomed at?
I know that there are nursing homes in this town that she is not welcome at.
Can you tell me the names of them?
Pines of Sarasota, Plymouth Harbor.
And that's because they don't want her.
She's been at Pines, and I'm not exactly sure exactly what happened, but because of behavior issues, they did not want her back.
No question in your mind, she's not welcome.
That is correct.
Thank
Excellent
you.
answer.
Nothing else.
Staying redirect.
Thank you. Doctor, on December 28th, when you read that email And based on your professional and your ethical obligations, were you compelled to ensure that your patient was safe?
Yes.
And based on your professional and ethical obligations, did you have the people from your office call the police to make sure that Marcia Soul could be prevented from committing suicide?
Yes.
So were the police aware of the background, the backstory, so to speak, before they went to her house, that she had consulted you and told you that she wanted to commit suicide? Or at least you believed that message came?
I'm not sure what the police were aware of at that time, as I had left this to Dr. Coco in my office to take care of.
Okay. So, but on October 21st, when she called you on the telephone and told you that she wanted to commit suicide by going into her garage and turning the car on, did you call the police? Did your office call the police?
Yes.
And so when the police went there, they were aware that she had already announced a threat to commit suicide to you.
That is correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So when the police arrived, although they made an independent assessment of the situation, have you ever known in your experience when you would send the police out to someone's house based on a suicide threat, that the police would say, "Oh, never mind, she's okay. We're not going to do anything about Dr. Lerner's communication"?
Objection to form.
Just a
Do
rephrase.
you have any experience where you sent law enforcement officers out to a potential suicide with the goal of having your patient Baker acted, and they did not do so?
Yes, I do.
You have that
I
experience?
have had that experience.
All right. And tell us about that experience.
I cannot remember the specifics or the details, but it's many years ago, but I believe that I have called the police in the past when I was concerned about a different patient who might be suicidal. And after the police went out and spent considerable time talking to the patient, they were comfortable saying, "We think the patient is safe, not suicidal," and they left the patient at home.
All right. And so when you asked your office to look at Marcia Soul on December 28th, that the law enforcement should have and could have made an independent assessment,
Yes.
correct? Thank you. Nothing further.
Doctor, you may step down, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Any is subject to recall, ladies and gentlemen?
Not by mistake.
No.
You are discharged from your subpoena at this time, Doctor. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, perfect timing for our lunch break. We've got, why don't we plan on being back here at 1:30? And once again, with the admonishment, please don't discuss this amongst yourselves, and I will see you at 1:30.
All right, we're leaving.